Hello and welcome to another exam paper walkthrough. Today I'm recording this video with a live studio audience of students from Pegasus Academy. We've got about 10 people in the room and we're looking at past paper revision from the foundation tier, from Edexcel Foundation, and we're looking at the November 21 series, and this is a paper 1. That's a copy of the paper. Attached to the description to this video is a PDF version of this paper that you can do. I would recommend that you either have a copy of the paper done or do alongside the video. Subscribe if you like. Before we get started, I'm just going to show you the grade boundaries for this exam series. So on this foundation tier paper, paper 1, we were looking at 11 marks for a 1, 22 for a 2, roughly 33 for a 3, 44 for a 4, and 56 for a 5, if you want to be looking at where you're heading in terms of marks. Okay then, let's crack on with the paper. Question 1 then, we're looking at write 3 out of 10 as a percentage. Well, 3 out of 10, if we times top and bottom by 10, we'd get 30. Put my pen on, that would help. We'd get 30 out of 100, and any percentage out of 100, all percentages are out of 100, so that would be just 30%. Question 2, write the following number in order of size. Start with the smallest. So the smallest one here is our negative 10, or minus 10. Next smallest is minus 7. The final negative number is minus 2. Then we've got 0, 1, and 8. Stick a comma in between each of the numbers, and there we go. And question 3, write 9 hundredths as a decimal. Well, 9 hundredths as a decimal should be 0.09, because that represents 9 hundredths. So that's decimal to fraction, of fraction to decimal. Write 227 correct to the nearest 10. Well, correct to the nearest 10, we round into that figure there, and it's either going to be 320 or 330. So those are the two that we've got the choice between, and that one's closer to 330. And question 5, write down the value of 7 squared. That means 7 times 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, question 6, write down the mathematical name of this quadrilateral. So we've got 2 parallel sides, and that's it. So that's going to be a trapezium. And part B, write down the name of this 3D shape. So we've got a circle on the top, circle on the bottom, and a uniform shape all the way through. So that would be a cylinder. Okay, question 7. 42 pounds is shared equally between 3 friends. How much do they each get? So I need to do 42 divided by the number of friends. So 42 divided by 3 is going to be, if we set it up as a short division, 3 is going to 4 fully once with 1 left over, and then 3 is going to 12 4 times. So we're looking at 14. And question 8. Grace recorded the eye colour of each of the students in her class. The frequency table below shows her results. So we've got blue, brown, green. Grace then drew a bar chart for this information. Write down one thing wrong with her bar chart. So if we look for common mistakes, totals are the first one that I would check. So we've got frequency of blue at 10, we've got frequency of brown at 16, and it should be 15. So that's the first one. Just looking for any other obvious ones. Green should be 4, I agree with that. We've got a gap between the bars. All the bars are even size. Let's check the scales. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. That's the only mistake I can see. Total for brown is wrong. Having a quick scan through the mark scheme for anything other than that. Acceptable examples are bar for brown is too high, 16 should be 15, brown needs to be 1 less, brown is wrong, the graph does not match the table. Non-acceptable examples are that there's no title, and that the gaps between the bars are wrong. So really, that's the only one. Thankful Brown is wrong. Okay, and question 9. Danny buys 1 loaf of bread for £1.20, 1 bottle of milk for 70p, 2 packets of cheese for £2.30 each. Danny pays with a £10 note. He says, I should get £3.30 change. Is Danny correct? You must show your answer. Your strategy for this is completely up to you. I would strongly recommend we work out the total, we work out the change, and we see whether the change is correct. So to do that, if we expect the information, I want 1 loaf of bread at £1.20, that would be £1.20. We want 1 bottle of milk at 70p. So in terms of numbers, that's going to be 0.7, because 70p is 0.7 of a pound, and 2 packets of cheese for £2.30 each. So I'm going to do this in 2 parts. I'm going to say that 2 times by £2.30 is equal to £4.60, and then that's the total I want to add on. So if I add those 3 numbers up, then so 2, 9, 15, and 1, 4, 5, 6. So it should cost him £6.50. So final step is going to be £6. £10 minus £6.50 is going to be equal to £3.50. So that's the change that he should have got. So is Danny correct? No. He would get £3.50 change. Okay, question 10. Rachel records the temperature in her garden at noon each day. On Monday, the temperature was 5 degrees C. On Tuesday, the temperature was 10 degrees less than the temperature on Monday. On Wednesday, the temperature was 3 degrees greater than the temperature on Monday. Find the difference between the temperature on Monday and the temperature on Wednesday. This one was slightly interesting. Realistically, you don't need this first figure. It asks for the temperature difference. So all we need to really do is on Tuesday, we had a temperature effect of plus 10. And on Wednesday, we had a temperature of minus 3. So the difference in temperature is going to be 7 degrees. And the initial temperature is actually irrelevant to this question. Alternatively, you could have done 5 plus 10, take away 3, and then you've got to work out the temperature difference between 5 and that temperature. It does ask for the temperature difference. So you don't really need that first figure. Okay, question 11. So the pictogram question. Pictogram shows information about the number of video games sold in a shop. We've got our pictures for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we've got a key here. One full square split into 4 represents 8 video games. How many video games were sold on Monday? Well, it's going to be 2 times the key. We've got 2 full squares, so 2 times by 8. So we're looking at 16 videos. More video games were sold on Tuesday than on Wednesday. How many more? So you could do the totals for each day and take them away from each other. Alternatively, you could look at how many blocks more there are. There's 1.5 more full squares. So it's going to be 1.5 times by 8, which would give you 12. That's just a slightly quicker way of doing that. And then on Thursday and Friday, a total of 32 video games were sold. A quarter of the 32 were sold on Tuesday. Complete the video graph for Thursday and Friday. So we want a quarter of 32 first of all. A quarter of 32 is going to be equal to 8, meaning that 8 were sold on Thursday, and meaning that 3/4 or 24 were sold on Friday. So I want 1 block for Thursday and 3 blocks for Friday. And that's pretty much that question. Okay, and on to question 12. There are 2 drama groups in school. In one group there are 36 boys, 48 girls. In the other group, 3/7 of the students are boys, the rest are girls. And says the ratio of the number of boys to the number of girls is the same for both groups. Is incorrect, you must show your answer. So we're looking at a ratio question, essentially. So if we look at group 1 first of all, and we're trying to put them into ratio form. So group 1, 36 boys and 48 girls. And our ratio here is boys to girls, so we're going to stick with boys to girls. And our ratio starts at 36 to 48. And then we look for numbers that go into both 36 and 48. We can cancel them both down by 12. If we cancel them down by 12, that would be 3 to 4. So that's the ratio of group 1. For group 2, the information's given as a fraction. So if we do boys to girls, so essentially there are 3 out of 7 parts are boys. And if 3 out of 7 parts are boys, then that means that 4 out of 7 parts would be girls. So again, we do have the same ratio. So is Anne correct? Yes, Anne is correct. Okay, on to question 13. Number sequence starts 1, 2, 4. Emma says that the next term is 7. Explain why Emma may be correct. So Emma is saying that the next term is 7. There's no guarantee it's 7, but we're looking for what pattern that Emma has kind of spotted. That number would go up by 1. That number would go up by 2. That number would go up by 3. So Emma could be right. Be right. As the difference in numbers is increasing by 1. Each time. Okay, second part. Here is the first 4 terms of the sequence of triangle numbers. Write down the 8th number of this sequence. So we've got kind of a choice of 2 ways of looking at this question. We could look at increasing them each time. It's probably going to be most straightforward to list them. We could attempt to try and find a formula. Those 2 numbers are going up by 2, those are going up by 3, those are going up by 4. So our next one is going to go up by 5. Our next one is going to go up by 6. Our next one is going to go up by 7. And our next one is going to go up by 8. So the 8th term of that sequence is going to be 36. Okay, question 14. 4 kilograms of carrots cost £1.80. 2 kilograms of carrots cost 5. And 5 kilograms of potatoes cost £3.45. Work out the total cost of 4 kilograms and 2 kilograms. So I'm going to form this into a very basic equation. I'm going to say C stands for carrots, so 3 lots of C is equal to £1.80. If I divide both sides by 3, then that would give me the cost of 1 kilogram of carrots is 60 pence or 0.6. From there, I'm going to say that 2 kilograms of carrots plus 5 kilograms of potatoes is equal to £3.45. So if carrots are 60 or 0.6, 2 lots of that is going to be £1.20 plus 5p is equal to £3.45. I take away £1.20 from each side, so 5p is equal to £2.25, and then divide by 5 gives me p. Cost of the potatoes is going to be equal to this divided by 5, which I think is going to be So I'm going to set that up as the division over here. So £2.25 divided by 5. Count my decimal point up. 5's don't go into 2. 5's going to 20 fully 4 times with 2 left over. 5's going to 25 5 times. So the cost of potato is 0.45. From there, I'm looking at 4 kilograms of carrots, so that's going to be 4 times by 0.6. It's going to be £2.40, and 2 lots of carrots, so 2 times by 0.45 is going to be equal to 0.9. So when I add those two together, then I'm going to get £3.30. So the price of 4 carrots and 2 kilograms of potatoes is going to be £3.30. Okay, question 15, expand. So 2 times A is going to give me 2A, and then 2 times D is going to give me 2D. So I'm looking at 2A plus 2D. Part B, factorize, so put into brackets. So our common factor here, we've got no number in common, we've only got y's in common. So I take y outside the brackets, and then I would need to times y by 6y to get 6y squared, and then I'd need to times y by and then I need to times y by 5 to get 5y with a minus sign in the middle. And then part C, solve. So to solve this, I'm going to have to add 7 onto both sides as my first step. So that will give me 4x is equal to is equal to 44. Divide both sides by 4 gives me x is equal to 11. Okay, question 16. Jasper says that, so we've got a kite, that means that that length and that length would be equal, and that length and that length would be equal. Jasper says that x could be 0.5. Explain why Jasper cannot be correct. Well, if x was equal to 0.5, 4 times by 0.5 minus 2 would be equal to 0, and the length can't be 0. And part B, the kite has a perimeter of 64. Find the value of x. And AD is 3 lots of AD is 3 lots of AB. So if I just call them y's for now, just to show you the short version. So all the way around the outside is going to be 6, 7, 8 lots of y. So really, I'm saying that 8 lots of 2x minus 2 is equal to 64. You could multiply out this bracket as your first step. I would find it easier to divide both sides by 8 to start with. So that would mean that 2x minus 2 is equal to 64 divided by 8 would just be 8. Add 2 to both sides. 2x is equal to 10. Divide both sides by 5. X would be equal to, divide both sides by 2. X would be equal to 5. And I've made a slight mistake here. I should have had not 2x there, that should have been 4x. So apologies for that. Same process though, it just means that my final figure then is going to be 10 divided by 4, which would be 2.5. So I'd made a slight mistake there. I just copied the value for one side down wrong. Okay, question 7. So Heidi wants to make some biscuits using this recipe. Makes 12 biscuits, and we've got a recipe. Heidi thinks she has, and then we've got some values. Assuming these weights are correct, work out the greatest number of biscuits Heidi can make. You must show your working. So I'm going to use batches. So I'm going to say if she got 500 grams of butter, 500 divided by 125 is going to be equal to, let's just change this slightly and say that's 100 over 20. That's going to be 4 batches using all the butter. If we then look at flour, so she's got 700 grams and she needs 200 for the recipe. So she can make 3.5 versions of the recipe from the flour. If we look at then sugar, so she has got 250 grams of sugar, and for each batch she needs 50. So she's got enough sugar for 5 batches. So the limiting value here, the value that we've got to pay attention to, is the amount of flour. She's only got enough flour for 3.5 times the recipe. So what we need to do is 3.5 times by how much the recipe makes. So if the recipe makes 12, 3.5 times 12. How you do that is up to you. I would say that 3 times by 12 is going to be equal to 36, and then a half of 12 is going to be 6. So 3.5 times 12 is going to be 42. So she can make 42 biscuits. Heidi is wrong. She has more than 250 grams of sugar. Does this affect the greatest number of biscuits Heidi can make? Give a reason for your answer. Does this affect it? No, as flour is a limiting factor. Limiting factor. By that I mean we could only make more if we had more flour. Okay, question 18. On the grid, draw the graph of y is equal to 2x minus 2 from the values of minus 2 and 20, minus 2 to 3. Table of values is more than acceptable way of doing this question. I would do it from the properties of the graph though, just because I find that slightly quicker. So we're looking for a graph with a gradient of 2 and a y-intercept of minus 2. So if we start at minus 2, for every full square across, we go up 2. Full square, 2, full square, 2, and then going back. I should join that up with a ruler. A comment from the summer exam series was that it was clear that a number of students had equipment but chose not to use it. So that's going to be my graph. And table of values is a perfectly acceptable method. I just find that one quicker. And that's it for that. Okay, question 19. Robin buys a watch for £80. He sells the watch for £56. Work out his percentage of loss. So percentage of loss is going to be equal to the change divided by the original amount times by 100. So the change is going to be 80 minus 56. So the change is going to be 24 divided by 56 times by 100. So 24 divided by 100 doesn't go exactly. So we would need to cancel that down. So 24 over 58. And I'm divided by the wrong number. So the original amount isn't 24. The original amount is 80. So 24 divided by 80 would cancel down by 8 to be 3 over 10 times by 100, which is going to be 30%. So his percentage loss is 30%. Okay, question 20. Work out. So 3-mark question for our multiplication skills. I tend to treat this as normal digits, so I would do 367 multiplied by 42. And I use column multiplication. There's nothing wrong with grid, just column tends to be my preference. So 2 times by 7 would give me 14. 2 times by 6 would be 12, plus the other one would be 13. And then 2 times by 3 would be 6, plus the 1 would be 7. I'm now multiplying by 10, so I'll put a 0 in the units column, and then it becomes multiplying by 4. So 4 times by 8 is 28. 4 times by 6 is 24, plus the 2 is 26. And then 4 times by 3 is 12, plus the other 2 becomes 14. I then add those two numbers together. So we're looking at 4, 11, 14, 5, 1. So my digits for the multiplication are going to be 1, 5, 4, 1, 4. Then I look at my decimal placement. My question has got 3 decimal digits, and my answer needs to have 3 decimal digits. So the decimal point would go there. Another way of doing it is saying it's going to be roughly 4 times by 4, so it's going to be in the ballpark of 16. So we're looking at 15.14. And then the second part, work at 59.184 divided by 16. So I never like dividing by a decimal number, so I would times both these digits by 10. It's a bit like fractions. 59.84 over 16 is going to, over 1.6 is going to be the equivalent to 598.4 divided by 16. And then I would stick with that, although I'd cancel it down a little bit first of all. So both numbers, I believe, will cancel down by 4. They might also cancel down by 8 if we do it by 4 first of all, though. So 4 is going to and then they'll definitely cancel down by 2. I think they'll cancel down by 4 again. I'm going to assume they cancel down by 4 again. So 4 is going to 14 fully twice with 2 left over. 4 is going to 29 fully 9 times with 3 left over. And then 4 is going to 36 fully 9 times. I've done that wrong. So I've made a mistake somewhere there. Yeah. Silly mistake. 4 is going to 14 fully 3 times. I think I made a mistake. Let's actually try and do the division instead. So 16s into 598.4. So 16 is going to 59 fully 3 times. 3 times 16 would be 16, 32, 48. 16 pyramids. 7 times. If I halve both numbers, half of 598.4 is going to be 299.2. If I halve both numbers again, well, half of 300 would be 150, so it's going to be 149.5. If I halve both those numbers again, half of 150 would be 75. And then if I halve both numbers again, that's going to give me 37.4. I think that's going to be the easiest way of doing it. You could have done the full division. I got a bit stuck when I got, well, not stuck. I realised that I was probably going in the wrong direction. That's the quickest way, I think. Okay, question 2. Okay, question 21. So we've got the universal set is even numbers less than 19. Set A is 6, 12, 18. Set B is 2, 6, 4, and 18. Complete the Venn diagram for this information. So I'm going to start with the numbers that they have in common. So 6, and they also have an 18 in common. So 6 and 18 would go in the intersection, the center section. Set A also has the number 12. Set B also has the numbers 2 and 14. We now need to look at the universal set, even numbers less than 19. So we're missing some even numbers less than 19. You can put these anywhere on the outside. To make it easiest for your marker, I tend to list them. So if I'm looking for even numbers less than 19, I'm going to have the numbers, we've already used 2, 4, we've already used 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So I would do like that. Okay, question 22. Question 22. Work out 3 1/5 minus 2 2/3, giving your answer as a mixed number. I tend to take a bit of a shortcut with these questions. I treat the number part and the fraction part separately, and then combine them afterwards. There's nothing wrong with converting them to improper, converting them to over the same denominator, subtracting them, and then converting back. I just find this a slightly quicker method. And then to add these fractions, I need to put them over the denominator of 15. So I've times the first fraction by 3, so that's 3 over 15. And I've times the second fraction by 5, so that's 10 over 15. So that's, and I've got, I'm supposed to have a subtraction in the middle there. And this is the slight trick. So we've got minus 7 over 15. So 2 minus 7 over 15 would become 1 and 8 over 15. And again, if you've converted them to improper fractions, put them over the same denominator, subtracted them, then converted them back. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just a slightly quicker version. Okay, question 23. At the end of 2017, the value of Tamara's house was 220,000. The value of Rami's house was 160,000. At the end of 2019, the value of Tamara's house had decreased by 20% and the value of Ramin's house had increased by 30%. At the end of 2019, whose house had greater value? Okay, so I'm going to split this into two parts. I'm going to look at T first of all. Their house started out at 220,000 and it decreased by 20%. So really, I want to take off 20%. If it was a calculator paper, I'd type that into my calculator. As it's a non-calculator paper, I'm going to break it down like this. I would say that 10% of the amount would be equal to, knock a zero off, 222,000. So 20% is going to be equal to 44,000. So the new price of the house is going to be equal to 220,000 minus 44,000. So that's going to be that's the price of T's house. So then I'm going to look at R's. So R's house started out at 160,000, but his price increased by 30%. So if it was a calculator, I'd be times by 1.3. And again, I'm going to work it out like the last one. I'd say 10% would be equal to 16,000. So 30% is going to be 3 lots of that. So 16 times by 3 is going to be 48,000. So the new price of his house is going to be equal to 160,000 plus 48,000. Which is going to be 208,000, if I've done that right. Let me just check my figures there. Yep. So whose house is worth more? So Ramin's house. And then in my answer line, I always like to state the two figures because I know that as a marker, I'm looking for the two figures. 208,000 is greater than, and the figure 176,000. So I know that as a marker, realistically, the mark scheme says yes with correct figures, and the correct figures are 208,000 and 176,000. So I like to include them on my answer line. Makes it dead simple for whoever's marking my paper to catch on that I've got it right. Okay, question 24. Rows R, M, and I collect stickers. Number of stickers Rosie has to the number of stickers M has to the number of stickers that I have is 4 to 7 to 15. Ramin has 24 stickers than M. Ibrahim has more stickers than R. How many more stickers? So I'm going to set those ratios up again. So R, M, and I. Ratio is 4 to 7 to 15. The information I has 24 more stickers than M. So those are, he's got 3 more parts. So 24 divided by 3 is going to be equal to, each part was going to be 8. So each part is 8 stickers. Ibrahim has more stickers than Rosie. How many more stickers? Well, he's got 11 more parts. So it's going to be so I've done this division the wrong way around. So it's I has 24 more than M. I has 24 more than M. So he's got 8 more parts because 15 minus 7 is equal to 8. So each part is worth 3. I has more stickers than Rosie. So he's got 11 more parts. So it would be 11 times by 3, which would be 33. I don't need to work out each person's total in this question. I just need to work out how many more parts. Okay then, question 25. This diagram shows a prism. The cross-section of the prism is right-angled triangle. The base of the triangle is 5 centimeters. Prism has a length of 25 centimeters. The prism has a volume of 750. Work out the height of the prism. So I'm going to call the height x for now. And I'm going to say that the volume of the prism, let me just charge my laptop. So the volume of the prism is going to be equal to a half of base times height times by the length. So in this case, that would be a half of x times 5 times by 25. And I'm not going to bother simplifying that just yet. What I'm going to say is that that volume is 750. So I'm going to rewrite it as a half of x times by 5 is times by 25 is going to be equal to 750. What I'm going to do is divide both sides by 25 to start off with. So a half of x plus 5 is going to be equal to 30. I'm going to times both sides by 2 to get rid of this half. So x plus 5 is equal to 60. And then my final step is I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So x is going to be equal to 55. And that doesn't look right. So let's have a look. Okay, so my mistake is between this line and this line, my multiplication changed to a plus. So let's just put that back as a multiplication. And then 30 divided by 5 is going to be equal to 6. Is going to be equal to 12. Sorry, 60 divided by 5 is going to be 12. So there we go. That's the right answer. Apologies, made a mistake there again. Okay, question 26. This diagram shows a cube with an edge of length x and a sphere with radius of 3 centimeters. The surface area of the cube is equal to the surface area of the sphere. Show that x is equal to the square root of k times pi, where k is an integer. Okay, so surface area of a cuboid, first of all, is where I'm going to start. Surface area of C, surface area of the cube, is going to be x times by x. And I'm going to have 6 of those. So it's going to be 6x squared. Surface area of the sphere, so I'm going to call that SAS, is going to be equal to 4 times by pi times by the radius squared. So that's going to be 4 times by pi times by 9. So that's going to be equal to 36 pi. And then we're told that those are equal. So I'm going to say that 6x squared is going to be equal to 36 pi. I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So x squared is going to be equal to 6 pi. And then square root both sides. X is going to be equal to the square root of 6 pi. Which is what we were asked to show. And the value of k being 6. Technically speaking, when I square root both sides, I would have a plus or minus, but because we're talking about a length, we can't have a negative length. So that's going to be my answer. Okay, and question 27, last question on the paper, I believe, no, not quite. So, question 27, yeah. Freddie measures the length of a pencil to 7.2 centimeters, correct to 1 decimal place. Complete the error interval for P. The error interval often appears later on in the paper. I find it quite straightforward though. So 7.2 centimeters to the nearest 1 decimal place. So it's been rounded to 7.2 as opposed to 7.1 or 7.3. So the smallest number that we would round to 72 instead of 71 is going to be 7.15. And then the largest value that we would round to 7.2 instead of 7.3 is going to be 7.25. Technically speaking, though, we'd round that up, which is why we show it with the inequality symbol of less than 7.25, but greater than or equal to 7.15. Okay, and question 28, work out the equation of the straight line L is y is equal to 3 minus 4x, write out the gradient of L. So if we compare it to the line y is equal to mx plus c, that line would be y is equal to minus 4x plus 3, so the gradient is going to be minus 4. Write down the coordinate of the point where L crosses the y-axis, so that's going to be the intercept, so that would be 0, 3. Okay, that brings us to the end of the paper. I'm just going to show you two documents on the back of that. One's the skills map and one's the grade boundaries. I will start with the grade boundaries. Okay, so that's the grade boundaries for that paper. We were looking at paper 1, so realistically you were looking at 11 marks for grade 1, 22 for grade 2, 33 for grade 3, 44 for a 4, and 56 for a 5. There's some other information on this. We've got grade boundaries for each paper, but then we've got the actual overall grade boundaries for the whole paper. There's also some information about the percentage of students that got each of the grade, which is quite interesting. Along with types of schools and what years entered. You don't need to worry about that though. And then the final thing that I wanted to show you before I sign it off is the skills map. Okay, so this is the skills map. So this is broken down each of the question into its topic areas. So for example, you struggled the most on question 22, that was calculating exact with fractions, you know where to target your revision afterwards. This column here is quite interesting. So this is the average, this is the average that students scored out of the total. No, sorry, that's the interesting one. That gives you the percentage that students scored on that question. So you can see which question students found very easy. So 95% of the cohort got question 2 right, but only 2% of the cohort got question 26 or question 28 right. And all of the chapters for this video are done on the topic areas. I'd also recommend some independent revision on any of those aspects. Thank you very much for your time in watching the video. I hope you found it useful. Please let me know if you've got any comments or questions. Just type them into the thread. That's the wrong paper. That's the one that we've just done. And if you found it useful, please subscribe.